Founder Abraham Penn taught a valuable lesson that has been part of a tradition since 1919 when he said, "I'd rather make a friend than make a sale." For more than 90 years, Puritan has been making friends as a unique family-owned company right here in Cape Cod. At Puritan Cape Cod on 199 Main Street, as well as Chatham, Mashpee, and Hyannis, you'll find the latest in men's and women's clothing, as well as ski and tennis equipment, and much more. Puritan Cape Cod, 548-0116, or PuritanCapeCod.com.
Internet services provided by Cape.com Incorporated. Established in 1994, Cape.com is the only locally owned and operated internet service provider on Cape Cod. Our specialties include e-commerce applications and design, wide area networking services, and high-speed DSL internet access throughout eastern Massachusetts. Cape.com continues to lead the way with cutting-edge applications, superior networking services, and quality customer support. For more information, visit us at www.cape.com or call us at 539-9500.
Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Monday, April 14, 2014 meeting of the Falmouth Board of Selectmen. The board is returning from executive session into public session. I invite you all to rise and join the board as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. My name is Brent Putnam. I'm chairman of the Board of Selectmen. To my left is Selectman Mary Pat Flynn and Town Manager Julian Suso. To my right is Vice Chair Doug Jones, Selectman Kevin Murphy, and Selectman Rebecca Moffett. If you have a cell phone or some other device that might spontaneously make noise while you're here with us, please turn it off or silence it for your duration. If you wish to speak this evening, we do have a speaker's policy on the door coming into the room as well as at the podium here. Please wait to be acknowledged by the chair. Identify yourself for the record once you've come to the lectern. We may know who you are, but our recording secretary or the folks at home may not. And please direct all your comments and questions through the chair. Please refrain from any private conversations here in the room or immediately outside the room because it can interrupt the proceedings. And if you decide to leave before we have finished our meeting, please do so quietly because, again, it can interrupt the proceedings. If you'd like to record the meeting, you may do so via audio or video. Video with permission of the board, and audio simply need to announce it to the board that you're doing such. So at this time, is there anyone who wishes to record the meeting using video or audio? Okay. Hearing none, the first item on our agenda, we have some announcements and proclamations. Mr. Jones?
Whereas, for more than a century, the bicycle has been an important part of the lives of most Americans, and whereas today millions of Americans engage in bicycling because it is a viable and environmentally sound form of transportation, an excellent form of fitness, and provides quality family recreation. And whereas the education of cyclists and motorists as to the proper and safe operation of bicycles is important to ensure the safety and comfort of all users. And whereas the Falmouth Bikeways Committee is planning a number of events in the town of Falmouth throughout the month of May 2014. Now, therefore, we, Brent Putnam, Doug Jones, Mary Pat Flynn, Kevin Murphy, and Rebecca Moffett, as selectmen of the town of Falmouth, do hereby declare and proclaim May 2014 as Bike Month, and throughout the town of Falmouth encourage all to recognize the importance of bicycle safety and be more aware of cyclists on our street. And I so move.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. We have a proclamation also for the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce 2014 Outstanding Citizen of the Year. Whereas the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce annually acknowledges and pays tribute to a citizen of the town of Falmouth who has made a lasting positive impact on the community through participation in a broad scope of activities and whose commitment to the town has been demonstrated by many years of service beyond his or her profession. And whereas Joseph C. Martina is an exceptional citizen of the town of Falmouth, Massachusetts, in New England, well known to all for his professional accomplishments and widespread contributions to the betterment of society. And whereas Joseph C. Martina is a model citizen admired and esteemed for successfully balancing his devotion to family with years of business integrity, timeless civic participation, and commitment to government progress. And whereas Joseph C. Martina, as a healthcare executive, mechanical engineer, and civic activist, has quietly, knowledgeably, and persuasively worked to build a better town and to man the action boards and committees so vital to all of our interests, and through membership, donations, and volunteering to preserve Falmouth open space and protect the values and rich character of the town of Falmouth, Cape Cod. And whereas Joseph C. Martina's many accomplishments and contributions, singularly and collectively, are memorialized in the minds of those he has touched and chronicled on the pages of organizations across this town. And as he continues to make a difference in the town of Falmouth, we do herein declare that this gentleman is worthy of high praise and great recognition. And now, therefore, we, Brent Putnam, Doug Jones, Mary Pat Flynn, Kevin Murphy, and Rebecca Moffett, as selectmen in the town of Falmouth, by the authority vested in us, do proclaim Joseph C. Martina, Falmouth's 2014 Outstanding Citizen of the Year. I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Mr. Zavala?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm hoping, of course, that you or your designee will join us on May 1st at the Seacrest Beach Hotel. Along with Mr. Martina, Jeff Oppenheim will be recognized for his achievements in professional excellence. Kevin Lynch will be recognized for his civic endeavors. The Falmouth Road Race will be recognized for the Chairman's Award, and our own Betty Bailey will be recognized through a special recognition for more than 40 years of service to the Chamber of Commerce. We're also hoping that the other dignitaries that are here present will join those from the state, and on our national scale, we're expecting a huge turnout, and that'll be on May 1st at the Seacrest Beach Hotel.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have a few other announcements here before we proceed to the next item on our agenda. We have some vacancies. The Affirmative Action Committee has 2 vacant positions. The Board of Assessors has 1 vacancy. The Building Code Board of Appeals has 2. The Cable Advisory Committee has 2 vacancies. The Cape Light Compact has 1 alternate position vacant. Conservation Commission has 1 full and 2 alternate positions. The Cultural Council has 6 vacancies. The Design Review Committee has 2 alternate vacancies. The Commission on Disabilities has 2 positions vacant. The Finance Committee has 1 position vacant. The Historic Districts Commission has 1 full and 1 alternate position vacant, and the Human Services Committee has 3 positions. Solid Waste Advisory Committee has 1 vacancy. The Port Authority Council, that we're going to be interviewing for that this evening. The Substance Abuse Commission has 4 vacancies. The Town Building Committee has 3. The Transportation Management Commission has 3 vacancies, and the Waterways Committee has 1 vacancy. Anyone so interested in any of these committees, please come to the Town Hall, the Board of Selectmen, and Town Manager's office, fill out an application, and we'll schedule an interview for you. Do we have any other announcements from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just received this today, although I think we entertained the an announcement about this previously, but this refers to the Complete Streets program, and it's asking municipal leaders to sign on to a letter to Richard Davey, who's the Secretary of Transportation and the Chief Executive Officer of the Department of Transportation for the state, and regards the implementation of the Active Street Certification Program. What that means is, in 2014, the Transportation Bond Bill authorizes $50 million in funding for a 5-year period to support cities and towns to invest in complete streets infrastructure that supports walking, biking, and transit in their communities. That's a complete street. And there's a lot more to it, but many years ago, some may remember that the Board of Selectmen back in the 90s, when we agreed and set a policy that any time we improved a street, anywhere in the town, if there wasn't a sidewalk there, that we would put in a sidewalk, and we did that. And if you drive around town, you will find that there are many, many streets and roads in the town of Falmouth that have sidewalks. So I'm just passing this out tonight. It's a request to have the principal municipal leader, who here would be the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, to sign on to this letter, and it's done electronically, so you'd have to do it. I did it today on the website for the Barnstable County. But I just pass it out so you can take a look at it and maybe put it on the next agenda if we decide that we want to support this, and I hope we do.
Thank you. Any other announcements from the board or the town manager's office?
No, sir.
All right, next item on our agenda, we have open public comment. This is for any item not on the agenda this evening. We provide 10 minutes, a maximum of 2 minutes per person. When we reach the end of the 10 minutes, we do have to move on because we have other items on our agenda. But anyone who would like to speak this evening, we do have a hand over here. Good evening, Ron.
Thank you very much. I'm Ron Zweig, and I'm here again as your representative to the Cape Light Compact. And I would just like to let people know about the energy efficiency program that the Cape Light Compact does. I know it's getting warmer now, and the days are getting longer, and it's getting lighter. But so the programs are not just for lighting and heating systems, as well as insulation of homes for energy efficiency. And it's a program that's paid for through our electric bills, and therefore we're entitled to apply and get audits done to have your house checked out basically for free for the first audit, and also some activities that are provided by the compact, as well as access to certain appliances and other things that have higher energy efficiency. Well, as it gets warmer, insulation also works in hot weather. And so if it's very warm summer, this kind of thing, your home would be in better shape, as well as they even have incentives for swimming pool pumps. I mean, this type, all electrical things, it's energy efficiency. So the number to call, as I've always said, our operators are waiting at 800-797-6699. And so anyone who's interested, I encourage you to call and take advantage of this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening, Hildy.
Good evening. Hilda Menge, Precinct 8. Just want to let the public know that the opt-out has been approved in the state. That means that anybody in the proposed sewer area can opt out of the sewer if they install eco-toilets in their house. That means no hookup, no betterment, no future sewer fees for those who decide to change all their toilets in the house to eco-toilets. That could be urinary version, it could be many, many different kinds. So I just want the public to know that that's happened, and we are very grateful.
Thank you for that information.
Welcome.
Does anyone else wish to speak this evening? Going once? Going twice? All right, next item on the agenda. We have the minutes of meetings March 31st, 2014, public session.
Mr. Chair, I move the minutes of March 31st as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous. And then we have the minutes of the March 31st, 2014 executive session.
Mr. Chair, I move the minutes of March 31st executive session and vote not to release.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, and then we have the summary of actions. If anyone wishes to hold any of these, please let me know. Item number 1 is NSTAR petition to install 3 proposed joint poles and remove 3 existing poles on Jones Road. Item 2 is NSTAR petition to install 5 proposed joint poles and remove 5 existing poles on Davisville Road. Number 3, NSTAR petition to install 1 proposed joint pole and remove 1 existing pole on Worcester Court. Number 4, accept funds from Cape Cod Municipal Health Group grant into Personnel Department donation account, $600. Number 5, request repairs to the Emerald House and expenditure from the Emerald House repairs account. 6, request for off-premise signs, Falmouth Prevention Partnership. 7, request for road closure, Fells Road, Spore Gardens, Daffodil Days, Saturdays, April 19, 2014, and April 26, 2014.
Hold
And we're going to hold 8. Thank you. So I need a motion for items 1 through 7, please.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second to approve items 1 through 7. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. And Mr. Jones, did you want to handle number 8?
I just wanted to make the motion. I think we need to do this under the general laws. I move to designate members of the Golf Advisory Committee as special municipal employees for purposes of general laws, Chapter 268A, the Conflict of Interest Law.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. All right. Moving right along, we have a wetland hearing. Falmouth Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing under Section 240-77, the wetland regulations of the zoning bylaws of the town of Falmouth this evening, on the application of Stephen Vantall for permission to rebuild an existing dock as shown on the plan in the waters of Eel Pond and located at 53 Toby Lane, East Falmouth. Area affected is Eel Pond, and interested parties may review the file in the Selectman's office. Good morning, Mr. Borselli, or good evening, excuse me, Mr. Borselli.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Michael Borselli, principal of the firm of Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant, Stephen Van Toll. Mr. Van Toll owns the property referenced in the application. There's an existing single-family dwelling and an existing dock at the property. We're here tonight to ask your permission to rebuild the existing dock. The existing dock has been in existence since, at least as far as we can tell from photographic evidence, since the mid-50s. It's been used by the applicant's family through those years, and it is beginning to need some significant improvements and repairs, so we were contacted to consult with the applicant and apply for the necessary permits and design basically a rebuilt dock in the same footprint as the existing dock. The existing dock doesn't meet any of the standards that are required today, both at the local and state level. The dock is unsafe, a little rickety, but still functions. The existing dock has a ramp and float. The float bottoms out at certain tides. The existing pier crosses a stretch of salt marsh. It's lower than is required today for public access along the waterfront. The decking material doesn't allow for sunlight penetration to the wetland below. So, at our suggestion, we propose a repair or rebuild of the dock that brings it up to meet all of these standards that it currently doesn't meet. And we designed the pier on the plan before you. We have been to the Falmouth Conservation Commission and received an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission that you should have in your file. And during the Conservation Commission review, there were some recommendations by the Conservation Commission that we incorporated into this design, the most obvious one of which is the existing dock is just a straight dock without any T. And the Conservation Commission made a recommendation that the new dock have a T at the end. Ts are more environmentally friendly because they discourage boats from docking closer to shore. If you have a straight dock, you can tie, which is the way the van poles tie their boat today, bow first into shore with the stern out in the deeper water, but because of the water depths here at some tides, some low tides, the keel of the boat actually touches the bottom, which is not really the best thing for the environment. It's really not the best thing for the boat as well. So there was a recommendation that there be a T installed so that the boat will now tie parallel to shore, and it'll be out in sufficient water depth. In this case, it'll be in excess of 3 feet at low tide. So this makes it so that there's further improvement to the environment and the substrate in the area of the existing dock. The T doesn't result in the dock extending out any further than the existing dock. It's designed to be at the same as the end of the existing dock. The outer face of the T will be the same, so there's no added impacts or issues with navigation. So we think that the proposed dock is far superior than the existing substandard dock, and hope that you will see it the same way and issue us a special permit for this dock, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Jones, you have some recommendations there?
We do have correspondence from Chuck Martinson, the Shellfish Constable, who has no comment at this time. I don't have a correspondence from the Harbor Master. Is that in the official file? We do also have a document from the Division of Marine Fisheries concerned about the location of one of the support pilings. Are you familiar with that?
Yes,
reference?
and if I could, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
that was generated during the Conservation Commission review, and we reacted to that by making a change to address their concern.
And then we do have the recommendations from the Conservation Commission recommending approval with some fairly, their standard conditions, but also some specific conditions for this project.
And there is nothing in this file from the Harbor Master, so we'll have to act with or without it.
Well, that was going to be my question, Mike, was the letter from Fisheries, noticing that it was not included in the order of conditions, which actually followed their letter, but you cleared that up by saying that you took that into consideration.
Yes, we did.
Thank you.
We shifted the pilings so that it addressed the
It
concern.
does that. Thank you. That was my only question.
Okay, questions?
I went out to take a look at the dock, and I think that some of the things I look for, just myself, is first to talk about wetlands, and there wasn't anything negative as far as that conversation. I also wanted to look at the distance from shore to shore. I think that you bring your boat in, and you think, oh, you've got enough room, and I was very satisfied with that part of it. The dock definitely needs to be repaired. A new dock needs to be put in there. And I think the point about the T was that you didn't expect that part, but then once they said to you that you needed to do that, and it doesn't take up any more space. I did look at the boat that was tied up there, and I was very satisfied with everything that I saw. And then, as we would have 30 pages of information, I think we know about that dock and all the requirements, so.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Okay, this is a public hearing, so we will take questions or comments from the audience regarding this. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Any general comments or questions?
I move to close the hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. I do want to call everyone's attention. I had asked Mr. Suso to provide everyone with a copy of the draft guidelines that Town Council had provided us last year regarding what the regulations, the wetland regulations, and what we can and cannot consider when approving or denying docks. So I hope everyone has that in front of you. If you have any questions about that, we could certainly go over that if you'd like, or we can proceed with a discussion about the dock.
Mr. Chairman, do you have a plan and with the date on the plan?
Let's see, we do have a plan here. The date is November 12, 2013, with a modification date of December 19, 2013.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve this with the plan dated December 13th.
It's November 12, 2013, modified December 19, 2013.
December 19, 2013.
I'll second that
plan.
motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Only whether we want to put findings in these hearings, that this says, the findings are that this does not have a negative impact on the immediate area, that the Conservation Commission has put in some conditions taking care of the aquatic resources and the shellfish preservation, and that we think that any environmental damage has been taken care of by the Conservation Commission. Okay. And so that we feel that according to what we're getting from the Town Council, that we feel this will not have an impact, and therefore we can grant the permit.
Just make some discussion on that. I think it's only necessary to make
To just
findings
vote.
if you're making a denial of a license.
Actually, we'll check with Town Council, but my experience when I was a member of the Conservation Commission is you need to include findings whether we approve or deny, because even though the applicant would obviously be pleased if we approve the project, there may be someone who might sue the town or the Conservation Commission if they did not like the decision, and therefore we have to be prepared either way in order to defend the decision that we make, whether it's favorable or not favorable.
Well, I think any decision we would make would be only subject to the findings of the Conservation Commission. I don't think this board has the knowledge nor the information to make a decision about something that's scientific. It's beyond the scope of what we have the ability to do. So I'd just leave it at that.
Our role really has to do with the public good. The conservation deals with all the wetlands regulations and anything that has to do with wetlands. Our issues are really the public good in terms of whether the conditions of the waterway, whether or not there might be too many docks, whether or not we might want to suggest that people have a community, I mean, all the kind of other public issues, not anything specific related to wetlands or anything. I agree with Kevin. Anything that the Conservation Commission addresses is not within our purview.
Would you be more comfortable with me saying this?
Well, I don't think we need to
Well,
debate
actually-
this. I think we just need to vote it.
I agree, whether or not there's need for debate, but I do want to remind the board, and I will read from Mr. Duffy's memo here, and this was provided to the board last year, that the Board of Selectmen is required by Section 240-216 to consider each of the following matters: adequacy of the site in terms of size for the proposed use, suitability of the site for the proposed use, impact on traffic flow and safety. In this case, it would be waterway traffic, which is why, of course, we ask for a recommendation from the harbor master. Impact on neighborhood visual character, including views and vistas, adequate supply of water, sewage disposal, drainage, that may or may not have an impact here, adequate utilities and public services, adequate impact on supply of affordable housing in town. Obviously, that doesn't apply to this particular situation. Compliance with any planning board conditions or decisions, compliance with provisions of the zoning bylaw. More importantly, he notes also under Section 240-79, there are considerations unique to wetlands, and we are required, he says, to consider the following additional matters: the effect on the immediate area and the general welfare of the town, as what Ms. Flynn noted, protection and preservation of shellfish and other aquatic resources of the town, as Mr. Jones noted, determine an adequate cash deposit or surety bond to ensure satisfactory compliance with the special permit, if we so desire, I'll add, and to mitigate any environmental damage in an area of critical environmental concern. So while we may not have any specific oversight with respect to the wetland regulations, and you are correct about that, Ms. Flynn, there are some areas within the bylaw that we do have to pay special attention to, which is why I wanted to make sure everybody had this memo. So we do have a motion, and I believe we have a second to approve this. And Mr. Jones has read some of the potential findings of fact. Do we have any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item on the agenda, we have a new wine, malt, and cordials. This is a liquor license hearing. Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws, as amended, that CF Main Street Incorporated, doing business as Country Fair Restaurant, has applied for a new wine, malt, and cordial liquor license to be located at 319 Main Street, Falmouth, Mass. Hearing to be conducted this evening. Is the applicant or the applicant's representatives here?
Mr. Chairman, before we begin, I'd like to disclose that I'm the holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Good evening.
Good evening, I'm Joe Massini, I'm representing the Country Fair. My wife, she couldn't make it today.
Okay.
And we'd like to provide that service to our patrons, beer and wine for lunch, and that's about it.
Okay.
Joe, hours of, I'm sorry, Mr.
No, go
Chairman.
ahead.
Hours of operation, the times that you want
Well,
the liquor for.
like on a Sunday, I'd like to have it in the morning, but I open at 7 in the morning and I close at 2, but my license, I can open at 7 and close at 10. I might want to do a dinner.
That's what I'm saying. So tonight, you're going to be asking for specific hours. That's one of the things we would say.
Well, I'd like it from 7 to 10 at night. That's,
The town does not give liquor licenses before 8 a.m.
well,
So it would be 8.
8 o'clock.
8 till
10.
8 till 10.
That's what,
And Sunday, the earliest time would be 10 a.m.
right,
Okay?
right.
Okay.
So 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. during the week, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Sundays?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
That's if I open at night, but I'd like to have it if I do.
Have that opportunity.
Right. I don't drink.
Thank goodness. You cook?
Don't need to open
I
up.
just cook eggs.
Not anymore anyways, right?
No, I cook eggs. I still cook eggs. I have good eggs.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Jones, do you have any recommendations
We do
from
have
staff?
the Captain Reed of the Police Department. They have done a query check of the applicant, and the department has no problem with the license.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so we are inviting questions or comments from the public. Anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this applicant? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this license? Any general questions or comments? Please.
What, are you pushing me off now?
Yeah, get out of my way. Adrian Dufresne, Precinct 2, and Country Fair is probably one of the finest restaurants breakfast restaurants on Main Street. Joe has been worked very hard. I don't remember how many years he's been there. 15 years, and has never, in my knowledge, had a problem of any kind, even when he burns the bacon once in a while. But anyway, I'd like to see this as a unanimous vote of the board for his job well done for the last 15 years. I'm a frequent stop over there. And he's been very good, I know, to our group, the Veterans Group. So anyway, that's all I can say. I hope you guys unanimous.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Okay.
I do have one more question, just as to where the beer and wine will be stored in your restaurant?
If you could come to the lectern.
Just to make sure that the access is only to the employees as opposed to...
Definitely, it will be.
Great.
Just two other quick things, Joe. Number one is that all the servers need to be tips trained. That's a training process for intervention with alcohol. We require that of all pouring licenses in the community.
Right.
So that's something that's easily attainable to do. And keeping in mind that I know you have typically a more mature staff, but no one under the age of 18 can serve any alcohol.
Right.
Realize that. Okay. So will we make a motion to close the hearing?
Second?
A motion and a second to close the hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. How would the board like to proceed?
I'd make a motion to approve the license with the hours of operation from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Sundays, and that's my motion.
Okay.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Congratulations.
It's Joe. We'll be there after 10.
All right. Next item on the agenda. Pass this down for signatures. We have a placeholder here for discussion of town meeting results in case anyone on the board wanted to have a discussion about the town meeting results. The next item on the agenda is obviously to approve the ballot language from the overrides that town meeting passed. But do we have, are there any general questions or comments, Mr. Jones?
I did want to make a comment that we were taken to task for the scheduling of the articles, and I felt, I think naturally we get defensive about those sorts of things. I actually think it should be acknowledged how much time we do consider where things get placed. We try to put the petitioner's articles earlier in the meeting. We try to put articles that are dealing with money, significant amount of money, around the same time. All those articles that were late in the evening were right at the same time as the budget, and it just made sense to put those together. I think most of us, thinking it was going to be a three-day meeting as we looked at it, didn't think it would necessarily be late on Tuesday night. And as it turned out, I think the discussion we ended up having on that issue was much better served by having it at 7 o'clock on Wednesday evening. But every time we do think about, as best we can guess, where things are going to fall as that concern is raised. And we will continue to do that, and I'm sure every time we get a town meeting warrant to try to balance that out as best we can.
I think it's also important to note that any article that's important to anybody, it's just the luck of the draw that it could be 10:45 when that article comes up. And this board doesn't specifically plan those things, but the town meeting does run. It has an opportunity to run till midnight. So it runs typically to 11, but we could go to midnight. And we don't have a crystal ball to say when discussion is going to be on certain items and how long it's going to be. And I think the moderator has the ability to be able to adjourn the meeting if he thinks that's the case and take it up the next night. So some nights we hit it, some nights we don't. So-
Or has noted that anyone in the body has the ability to make that motion to adjourn for the evening, but interestingly enough, they don't always take advantage of that ability. But it is worth noting, too, that obviously we've put the petitioner's articles in the middle of the warrant in recent years in order to, if nothing else, give them some more respect and not put them at the end. But ironically, in this situation, we still had petitioner's articles that were at 10:30 at night, just because, like you say, the luck of the draw and the way the town meeting played out, that sometimes it happens that way in spite of our best efforts. So we'll try, I guess, again next time, and we'll see how it plays out. Any further discussion about the town meeting and the results? Okay. All right, so we have the language for the ballot questions. We need to approve both the language and the order. And we have, let's see.
I would like to propose, even if it's just for discussion purposes, that we make the question 1 having to do with the all-purpose community athletic field. And if you want, I'll put the language at the same time of that. Or do you want to just vote on which numbers they are first, and then worry with the language second?
Well, if you'd just like to start, with the language is, unless the board decides to change the language, we have that here, but if you'd like to suggest an order, we'll start with that.
I would suggest Article 1 be the all-purpose community athletic field. Article 2 be the design and construction of a water treatment system, water filtration plant. And Article 3 be for the multi-package dealing with the comprehensive wastewater management plan.
All right, well, there's the suggestion. Any discussion, Ms. Moffett?
My recommendation is that the athletic field would not be one. I believe that the major issue in town, and as far as the seriousness of the amount of money, has to do with the wastewater and the, I'm not saying the second one. But water filtration, thank you. But I do think that that should go first. It was first in our voting, and I think we should continue with that, and then have the field on the third one.
And if I can, I think it's important before we decide an order to decide whether you're going to combine or not combine.
Well, that's
the water
true.
and wastewater.
That's true.
I mean,
Yep.
Okay.
placing an order there will be something that we can't place three, say an order of 3 if we're only going to have 2. My personal opinion would be that we would separate, separate both wastewater and water filtration. Up until now, we have combined those issues, but those were issues that had dollars and amounts that were under $10 million ranges, typically for design of these as we move forward. Both of these items are over $40 million, and I think the voters and the people of the town of Falmouth should have an opportunity to decide. I would hope that they would decide on both of them, but I think when you put this combined together, roughly $90 million, that doesn't give the voters a fair chance, and I think they need to have that opportunity. And I think both of these items can live on their own merits and survive on their own merits.
I absolutely agree with Kevin. I think wastewater should be first and water should be second. I think that these are the 2 major projects in the town, the biggest ticket items. And I think that they should, and these are really town issues. They affect everybody in the town. I realize that the athletic field affects a lot of people too, but not in the way the water and the wastewater do. And so I think they should be separate, and I would like to see that same order, that wastewater first and water second and the fields third. Because it's also the least cost in one sense. And it's also a different form of funding. The water and the wastewater are really funding which are coming out of retired debt, so it really doesn't increase the tax rate. Now, the third one, the fields don't increase, well, they do increase the tax rate for 1 year. It's a capital exclusion for 1 year only. And I think that we have to do a really good job between now and the election about educating the voters on, I think pretty much people understand what the wastewater and the water are, but they still need to be more well-defined. And I think how those projects are going to be funded should be very, very clear to all the people who are voting. In the same way with the fields, I think it should be very clear to the voters exactly what they're going to be expected to pay. I think it's something like $65 a year or $15 a quarter on the tax bill or something, but I think it needs to be clear. And people need to really know not only what they're voting for, but what the costs are and what the costs will be to them on an average home, which is the way we usually do it.
I'm very comfortable with amending my motion to go to the order that Mrs. Flynn suggested. On the idea of combining and separating the two articles, last year when we had the same discussion, we did combine them. I'm convinced that was the right decision. I think part of it was the dollar figure. I still see these as being two pieces of a very closely connected puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are not going to treat the water that goes into our groundwater aquifer and out to the estuaries, if we're not going to do our best to take care of that, to then build a filtration system that then has to work harder, I think is a mistake. But I do think both plans are so strong that they can stand on their own, and I understand the question of separating them. I would have no problem. I mean, I'm going to vote for them together as one piece, even though it's two questions. And I just think we need to push very hard as to how important they are for both.
Right, I wanted to say something else about that too, because last year we did combine them, the water and the wastewater. And we had a lot of pushback from people because they felt that a lot of the voters felt that they really wanted to be able to vote separately. And I know that the numbers were a lot less at that time, and we saw it as a major infrastructure project, if you will. So we kind of grouped it under infrastructure in one question. I think this time around, they are two different projects, but very much related. But at the same time, if we really want to know where the voters are in terms of the building the water treatment facility and the wastewater with all its, pieces to it, if it were combined, and let's say it passed by a huge vote, we would never know why. And if it didn't pass, we would never know why. We wouldn't know whether it was the water that brought it down or the wastewater that brought it down, if that were the case. So I think by separating them, it gives every voter the option of really knowing and understanding what they're voting for in terms of water treatment, why it's so important that we have clean water, because we do have a problem, and why it's so important that we begin these wastewater projects. And then we will know where the town is, where the voters are when it comes to the end result of the voting. We will have a good sense of where people are on those issues, I think, so.
So I've heard from everybody.
Well, no, I wanted to ask Mr. Jones a question for you. Are you saying that you see that as two separate, 1 and 2, or are you combining them?
No, I'm agreeing with Mrs. Flynn's recommendation. It'd be 1, 2, and 3. 1 being wastewater, 2 being the water treatment filtration plant,
Okay.
and 3 being the fields.
Thank you.
So I just want to get a feel for, before we proceed, everybody agrees that the wastewater and the water would be separate questions on the ballot, are we correct?
Yes.
Yes.
There's no objection to that.
And I just want to make one other comment. Everyone wants to be number one, just so
Yeah.
everyone knows.
Isn't that the truth?
But it's not just because it's the loneliest number, it's because, one, most people have signs already. So I've been approached on multiple of these questions, and everyone already has signs that they could use from a question 1 ballot. So let's get that out there. Everyone wants to be 1 because they don't have to spend any more money. Because there are approved question 1 signs for the schools, there's approved question 1 signs for wastewater, there's approved question 1 signs for water. So it's up to the board.
And for the fields, they have question
They
1
do.
signs as well.
That's
So
exactly
everybody
right.
has
So it's-
signs for question 1.
Right.
So, separate water and sewer, what I'd like to put out there for the board's consideration is that the sewer question, consider separating that into 2 pieces. And I know this hasn't been discussed before. It was something that a constituent raised when I was discussing with them over the weekend, is the idea of separating. There are 4 items on there. One is the Little Pond Sewer Service Area. The other is the wastewater treatment plant improvements, the discharge site, the Bournes Pond Inlet widening and the Woods Hole infiltration and inflow project. And one of the suggestions was that the wastewater treatment plant improvements and the Woods Hole infiltration/inflow project are actually DEP required, that we are under agreement with the DEP to get those done because of prior violations, if you will. And the suggestion was to separate that from the optional ones, the sewer service area, the Bournes Pond Inlet widening, and the discharge area Site 7, because those are not as urgent, if you will. And to Ms. Flynn's point about whether it succeeds or fails, I think, certainly from my perspective, I'd like to make sure that we satisfy the state's requirements and not scuttle those if there is an overall animosity towards the Little Pond sewer project.
You would be able to build a case for that had we not discussed that and voted on it at town meeting. It was an article that came forward, an motion that came forward, an amendment to a motion, and it was defeated at town meeting. So as far as I'm concerned, that's off the board. When we would be circumventing what town meeting had to say by separating those items. Town meeting said they didn't want them separated. They put it all forward as one motion, and I think that's what we have to do as a board.
Just a reminder, though, what the motion was to separate each individual item into what would have been 4 separate articles, and what I'm suggesting is 2 articles, not 4, and that town meeting didn't have the opportunity to discuss 2 separate articles. It was splitting everything into individual articles. So I put that out there for the board's consideration.
Well, the way I look at it is all part of our comprehensive wastewater plan. This is the plan that we submitted to the state, and it had all these pieces in it, you know, everything that you itemized there. That's all part of that comprehensive plan. And I don't think we want to risk not having that plan that was really not only approved by the Cape Cod Commission under their DRI, but it was also approved by the state as a plan. And I think to break it up is a disservice to the town, really. And I think it's a huge disservice to the Water Quality Management Committee that has spent so many hours for the last, 3 or 4 years, really putting this plan together. So we have here in a comprehensive plan approved by the state. And I think to piece it out like that, I don't think that's a very good idea. I don't think it gains us anything. What it does is, it gives people who may not want or like a certain piece of it the option of saying no, but I don't think that's what we want. We have worked very hard through our public outreach to try to build consensus on this wastewater plan. And if we don't continue to pursue that goal of having community consensus, then I think we do a disservice, not only now on this plan, but going forward. So I think it's really important to the integrity of the comprehensive plan that it stays intact and it goes to the voters intact.
I agree with you. And I think that the point is it becomes, again, very complicated for the voters. I think that we have always presented it in the same way. We voted on 2 different times, and I think now to split one part of the second half is way too confusing for people.
It's also a house of cards. And the house of cards are that if the sewer plant upgrades are not approved, by chance, you're assuming that the weak links, meaning the sewer collection system, would not be. But say that passed, and the upgrades to the plant did not, as well as the infiltration piping in Woods Hole did not, the whole deck of cards falls in. So it has to sit as one package. It has to move forward as one item, because they rely on each other. Yes, it would be great to think, oh, well, only the things that would pass would be the state mandated things, but we don't know that. What we need to do is pass an entire comprehensive plan, and folks need to understand, this is going to be a generational or multi-generational process moving forward. It's not a snowball that's going to stop. This is a portion of what we're moving forward on, And, you know, it's gonna take years to implement this, and then after that, we'll move on to another section of this community. But we've gotta take it step by step, and this step has to be all together. At least that's my thought on it.
All right, so generally, it sounds like so far we've got the two questions, water and then sewer. We're not going to divide the sewer up. And then we have the field. So the last question is
Water, and sewer.
the order. So we've wastewater, water, sewer, is that?
I think we could do a lottery if someone had that thing, because
I've heard from a few folks, wastewater, water, sewer.
Yes, that's what I,
Excuse me,
that's what
wastewater,
I was proposing. Wastewater, water, and
field.
sewer.
Okay.
Wastewater, water, field.
Like
That's the
wastewater.
article, those are the articles in that order that we put on the
Actually,
ballot.
before we take a motion, I want to hear from the public. Mr. Finneran.
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6, candidate for Board of Selectmen. The arguments you've given haven't really given us a reason why the inlet widening and the bridge couldn't stand alone. I mean, they're not dependent on others. And I'd like to also, and as far as the mandated items, it may be a better idea, because we're living in novel times here. There's actually the potential for the voters to vote these items down and actually lower their property taxes. Maybe it'll only be for a year or two, but we have $10 million extra in the budget that we're trying desperately to spend because we don't want to give it back. And if the voters actually get wind of that, maybe everything will go down. So I think it may be wiser to try to protect yourself at the very least on the mandated items, but that's just my opinion and that of many others that I've spoken to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? In the back corner?
I'm Amy Larkin, Precinct 8. I'm in favor of having the two wastewater and filtration separate. And I also like the separating out the different components. I'm in favor of that. It's almost insulting. It's almost like, well, if the voter doesn't vote for this, then this isn't going to work. It's sort of like, well, as a voter, I don't consider myself stupid. I mean, I study the issues, and so if it's going to be a house of cards that the whole thing falls apart, that would be good to put it in the paper or something. Well, it's out. So all the little components, I like them separated out, if possible.
Thank you. Virginia?
Virginia Valiela, Precinct 5, and Vice Chair of the Water Quality Management Committee. Eric is not in town, our chairman, tonight. I want to thank Mr. Murphy and Ms. Flynn for their explanation. This comprehensive wastewater management plan is, in fact, a piece that has been very carefully developed. The parts are interconnected. They are both traditional sewering and alternatives. That's where the Bournes Pond widening comes in. It is a financial package that has been prepared so that it does not impact the tax rate, and so all of these things are scheduled in terms of construction so that they fall in place. It makes sense to have the wastewater as a question, and I appreciate that it's question one. I want to reiterate that the matter of separating these projects was brought up to town meeting, and it was a resounding defeat. It was 140 people who said, do not separate, and 51 who said to separate. So I believe that that issue is a matter of record, and you should proceed with the wastewater as one question, filtration is another question, and the ball field is another. Thank you.
Mr. Dufresne?
Eden Dufresne, Precinct 2. Again, I want to thank the Board of Selectmen for their consideration in separating these financial requests from the taxpayers. I think it would, we had a fantastic presentation from wastewater. We had a fantastic presentation from the football field. What I don't recall is the kind of presentation that would be necessary for the $48 or $49 million water filtration. I was told this week that there's a possibility that the siting of the water filtration plant may not be where they think it could go. Now, that hasn't been resolved, at least publicly. And so I think we could have a little more dialogue on the cost of $46 or $48 billion for the water filtration, even though we're under the gun because of the Boil Water Act, I guess, was a couple of years ago, but I think the man that was in charge was not qualified. So, you know, we ended up with a black mark. But, and in conclusion, on a previous conversation, I've got 45 years of town meeting, and I've never worried about the hours or the number of days. It's a job that we undertake for the management of, quote, Falmouth Corporation. And I think you guys, I want to thank the two selectmen that are leaving. I may not come to another one of these meetings. I think you guys have done a very professional job. I've not always agreed with you, but nothing with us is personal. So, but anyway, I do thank you for separating these issues. I think it's in the best interest of the voting public that they know exactly where their money is going and for what purpose. But I would behoove the Board of Selectmen acting as, I believe, are you people still the Department of Public Works?
Yes.
Under the charter?
Right.
That a little more information on the water filtration plant's cost and location. Thank you.
Just so you know, Mr. Dufresne, the superintendent of the DPW did have a rather lengthy presentation prepared, but town meeting didn't seem to be inclined to have any debate regarding that issue, and so hence my Reader's Digest version of the presentation. I think his would have lasted 20 or 30 minutes looking at the number of slides he had, but we could certainly entertain something such as that perhaps at an upcoming Board of Selectmen meeting so that the public is fully aware of the issues.
Mr. Chairman, there are some of us that really like to listen to what is being presented as the facts. And again, I'm going to reiterate, I thought the wastewater people did a fantastic job, and the people that were anti-wastewater did a fantastic job, even though that one there was really not acceptable. So, you know, town meeting is the legislative body of the town. I think everybody that's a town meeting member should realize that and don't worry about the hour. That's
Thank
a
you.
personal opinion. Thank you.
Mr. Neto? Ms. Mangay, you're next.
Good evening, Joe Netto, Precinct 9. I would like to thank you in two regards. First, as a town meeting member, when the motion got up to take one of the articles and break it up to 4, I was glad that you remembered that that was brought up at town meeting, and that, as Virginia said, we soundly defeated it. So it's always nice to know that somebody pays attention to what we do last week. The second thank you is, as an individual, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for the time that you gave me over the last 36 hours and the discussions and the callback. We may have our differences on items, as Mr. Dufresne mentioned, and one of the things that you hear is you cannot get in touch with the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen never listen to you. Well, I stand here tonight in this podium to say that that's not true. You do have to make an effort, but they do communicate with you. Again, I too would like to say thank you for that personally. I know last year was one set of circumstances and something was done, and I think it also shows that the board listens to the community. And I would like to think that the outcome would have obviously been the same whether I had contacted you or not. But again, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Hilda Menge, Precinct 8. I want to thank you too for splitting up the two. It was really hard to accept it last year, so I'm really glad it's separate. I like Mr. Putnam's proposal. I like that very much, actually. I think the repair should be separate, and it's very unlikely that the voters with a little bit of education wouldn't vote for that. It's not even $4 million compared to the whole package deal, which is 40 whatever, thousand, 40 million. So I think highly likely that that would not pass. And keeping the new projects separate would give voters a real chance to vote. I found it a little bit embarrassing too to hear that we would be, as voters, too dumb to handle four questions. I think we can handle it. And the CWMP that we have now been approved for is an adaptive management plan. It does not mandate that we do these projects or that they all be in one article. We checked that with the state. They're not mandated to be together. So it's not that we have to do it. It's an adaptive management plan. And we are learning so much since we started that plan that even in the last half year, we have learned new stuff that will help us clean our water in a much less expensive way than what this particular proposal is. And therefore, I would like to stress the adaptive management part of the plan and not the traditional way of doing the sewers first and then having basically no money left to do all the other projects that we think will be so much more beneficial in so many more ways. And that gives the voters a chance to even look into that and get educated about it. So I'm really appreciative that you brought it up. I think it's an excellent idea. And I hope that more people see the value of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just want to say that this is really the first of many comprehensive wastewater management plans. We're going to be doing this for the next 40 years. And when you when you think about it, this is just really the first watershed, little pond that we're really dealing with. And we have all the other watersheds, all the south-facing watersheds, and we have some on the west watersheds too, along Buzzards Bay. So we're going to be doing this for a very long time. But I think what's really good about this year and this plan is that we don't have to raise taxes to do this plan. And hopefully boards and town meeting members going forward, that we will find other more pleasing and appropriate ways to fund our plans going forward as we have this time around. Even though they're large amounts of money, they don't really necessarily at this time impact the homeowner. That's all.
All right, how does the board want to proceed?
I would move that we have Article 1 be the wastewater management plan, Article 2 be the water filtration, water treatment system, and Article 3 be the field debt exclusion 1 year.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I think we need to learn a little bit when we have these discussions, and I would like to make sure that we do have a presentation between now and the election from the water filtration folks. Okay.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous.
Do we need the wording on these specifically as a motion?
I don't think so. The wording there, unless the board has any objections to the wording that was provided.
I think that's subject to review by town council
Right.
anyways.
Yeah. Right. Next item on the agenda is a change of manager, all alcoholic common victualler license, the 99 Restaurants of Boston LLC, located at 30 Davis Straits. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative present this evening?
Chairman Dan Truesdale from the 99 Restaurants.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Does the board have any questions?
No.
We do have documentation from Brian Reed of the police department that they have done a query check, and the department has no problem with the request to change the manager.
All right.
I don't think this is a public hearing. So
No,
we can
it's
go-
not a public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the public about this? This is a simple change of manager request.
Just a disclosure, Mr. Chairman, I'm the holder of an all alcoholic seasonal liquor license.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve.
Second?
A motion and a second to approve the request. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous, thank you.
Great, thank you for your time.
Next item on our agenda, we have a request to add additional species of shellfish to a shellfish aquaculture license. This is a public hearing, and the Board of Selectmen holding a public hearing this evening under Section 240-77, the wetland regulations of the zoning bylaw, on a request for an amendment to a shellfish aquaculture permit, number A11-05 by Daniel Ward of Ward Aqua Farms LLC at 51 North Falmouth Highway, North Falmouth. This request was received in the office on March 21, 2014, and hearing to be held this evening. The request is to add additional species of shellfish, specifically quahogs and bay scallops. The dimensions and the area of the grant and all other conditions will remain the same. Mr. Ward.
Mr. Chairman, before we begin, I want to make a disclosure that I own a restaurant that sells a large quantity of shellfish.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. So you're just amending your request to include these other species?
Yeah, so the upweller license that you approved about a month ago had these 3 species, so this is just matching the upweller so that I can raise all 3 of both spots.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Was it your idea that we had taken care of that on our previous vote? I think as I was reading through that maybe you thought that had already happened and you were surprised that you had to come back.
I think that might be the next guy after me.
Okay.
I
Oh,
think
am I
might
doing
be-
that?
There's 2 oyster
Maybe
people tonight.
there are,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
2 oyster people tonight.
Okay.
Well, this one was...
You were more efficient, is that what
Well,
you're saying there?
well, actually, in my original permit in 2011, I had quahogs and oysters, but I only got approved for oysters, but it doesn't matter because they don't grow quahogs. So I didn't really think about it. I didn't even realize it until I put in this application, and I realized that I had it on there originally, but it doesn't matter. So just to make it match my grow out site to the upweller site so I can do both, that's all.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
And the only other question we had at the previous time was talking about wasn't kelp you were looking into as an experiment.
Yep.
But that was something you could do as an experiment if you want to. But that has nothing to do with this anyway, so it doesn't even need to come up.
Completely separate. Yeah, that's
Okay, this is a public hearing, so we'll be looking for any feedback from the audience. Anyone who is in favor of this? Anyone in opposition? Any general questions or comments?
Yeah, Mark Finner in Precinct 6. Ron Smolowitz gave us some interesting information on the kelp growth and the, I can't recall the name of the floating beds that they have. And I was also told by some others that it actually has great promise, so I was wondering if maybe we could have Mr. Ward keep us in tune to how exactly that's working and shaping out for future reference. Thank you.
So noted. Any other questions or comments from the public? Okay,
Move we close the hearing?
Okay, we have a motion to
Second.
close the hearing and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? It's unanimous. How shall we proceed?
I move approval of the additional species being added to the license of adding the mercenaria and the Argopecten irradians.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Congratulations. All right, next on the agenda, we have another public hearing. Under Section 240-77, Wetland Regulations of the Zoning Bylaw, on a request for a shellfish aquaculture permit by Ty Perini, 24 Homer Ave, North Falmouth, Massachusetts. Request received in our office on October 18, 2013. The hearing to be held this evening. This is a permit for one location, specifically as follows: to grow eastern oysters in an upweller aquaculture site measuring 20 by 8 feet and fastened to dock in Megansett Harbor and located at 41 degrees, 38.799 minutes north and 70 degrees, 37.716 minutes west. And it gives the other dimensions as well. We'll just stop with that particular location. Copy of the application is on file with the board. Mr. Perini?
evening.
All right, questions from the board? No questions?
I guess the only question I had was this our oversight not to include the Upweller site in the fall when we approved this, or your oversight? Just
There is actually no deviation from tonight from my original. Maybe it's my fault for not putting more emphasis on the Upweller, but it's the same proposal, my original proposal. It's got the same letter of approval from Chuck Martinson. It's got the same letter from Jennifer McKay. I still have to go through the whole process with the Conservation Commission, but this is basically just saying, okay, when Jerry Mills from the Division of Marine Fisheries comes out, which I think it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks from now to do the survey for my grow-out site, it's going to come on the same day and just get that area for the dock. And I'm actually just going to be replacing that old auxiliary dock on the end. It's been there since I was about 11 years old, and it's getting pretty decrepit now. And
okay,
it's really going to be no new dock, just replacing it.
And so I think the only thing we hadn't done is put in the minutes that we were approving both the grow-out site and the Upweller. And that, since it wasn't in the minutes, it's the reason we had to come back to this.
Right.
Which gets back to a little bit to your point on these hearings, to make sure that we declare enough in the hearings what's going on, so they can be in the minutes for future reference.
Just for disclosure purposes, I own a restaurant that sells a large quantity of shellfish, but Ty, can I ask you a question? So basically, you'll be able to multi-use this dock. You'll use it for a dock, and it will also be an upweller at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it is a dock technically,
Right.
but I'll just be using it really for the shellfish.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Moffett?
Yes, how close are these two aquaculture farms? How close are they?
Oh, it's one farm, really. The Upweller is the nursery. It's where you
Oh,
you get them
excuse
about-
me, I should have finished my sentence.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In
I
comparison to Mr. Ward.
Oh, I'm going to say about 300 or 400 yards southwest of his. So, actually more. There's the Rance Canal channel that goes out, and about, I'd say, 100 yards to the north is Mr. Ward's, and then I'm pretty much dead center between Rance Canal channel and the Fiddler's Cove channel.
Is there any conflict?
No.
Any difficulty?
I went over this with Greg Frazier.
Yes.
He gave me the thumbs up. I actually moved it over a little bit before I put in the proposal.
You're
So
not
there's no
getting in each
navigation.
other's way?
I'm sorry.
You're not getting in each other's way?
No,
Okay.
we get along. We'll be all right.
Well, I think it's something new for all of us to learn about, and you've done a good job, and there's a lot of information here. So I just mixed you up with Mr. Ward.
We're not that far from each other.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? This is a public hearing, so we are inviting public comment on this. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition?
I was in the first one. Hi, Dan Ward again, and yeah, I've been working with Ty through this whole process and trying, since I've been through it a couple times, trying to help him through the bureaucratic process, and so, yeah, we've worked together, we've gone diving out in this area, searching out sites together, so there's no conflict. And although 400 yards sounds like not that far, it's really quite a distance from mine anyways, so no conflict.
Thank you.
Move we close the hearing?
Any other questions or comments? All right.
I move we close the hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the hearing. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous. How shall we proceed?
I would move approval of the addition of the Upweller site, or the mention of the addition of the Upweller site to our minutes, to give the Marine Fisheries direction to go ahead and inspect it.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item on our agenda is a request for a sign variance. This is Greener Image Landscaping Incorporated, 955 Sandwich Road. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative here?
Oh.
And we have a map for everyone.
Do you have enough?
Here, so here, I'll just,
Well, here's another one.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Hello.
Good evening.
My name's Hillary. I'm Cameron. I'm the head landscape designer and horticulturist at Greener Image, and I'm taking care of the signs.
Okay.
Well, I would wonder if you could, what we have before us is a sign placed on a roadway, and what you're here is to ask for a waiver. Is that still your plan, to put the sign on the roadway, or have you come up with some other alternative site?
No, it's just on the roadway.
On the roadway?
I went out to your place today, and I talked with one of your employees, and he called the owner, and then we walked to a site that was inside the guardrail. So if it is on the road, it would not be inside the guardrail. And that's where one of your employees told me to walk over here and then pointed to an area, and he said, this is where we would put the sign. Now, there's a lot of small trees there. So if you're coming from the guardrail, from Sandwich Road, and then you're coming to the entrance into your business, the sign that was pointed to me would be adjacent to the guardrail. So that's a very different place than what we're reading.
I'm not quite sure who you spoke to. I wish I was there to be able to guide you through where we would like it. The town owns 15 feet from the road into the property. So what we're asking for is to put it in within that 15 feet.
Oh, it's fine.
We've been through the traffic commission and the design committee review board, and it would, do you happen to have a copy of the picture?
Yes.
I do. I don't know if everyone else has a copy of this.
They're really not the best of photos.
Yeah.
Ms. Cameron, you'll need to speak
okay.
into the microphone there at the podium, because the folks at home won't be able to hear you without that. So.
Okay, sorry. I was hoping to point to this exact area for the sign.
Well, we have this
Yep,
diagram or depiction, if you will.
exactly. So it would be, the guardrail stops before, so there wouldn't be any conflict really with where the guardrail is.
I have a question. When we look at the map, what we see is the roadway entrance to to the property. Do you own all the property, which way does Sandwich Road go? East and west? North and south? Which way? North and south? So south of your driveway, do you own all that property too, where the house is, the White House? So you own all of that?
Yes.
Why wouldn't you consider, I went by there today to see how close a sign would be if you put it where, if we actually agreed to have you put it where you wanted to put it. Why wouldn't you move it further back from the driveway and put it on the property where the house is, which is, it says office building on it?
There's two different properties there. There's 981, and then there's the, kind of up the hill, is the nursery property. So
Right.
there's two different ones. The office is on 981, and that's where we want the customers to come in and park. We have the outdoor display, and it's all kind of designed around the customers parking and coming in that entrance.
Well, if you look at this map here, which is just an enlarged version of the one you provided us, this is where you want to put the sign, and this is the roadway going this way, and this is that white office building. why could you not put it further down so people could see the sign before they get to the driveway?
There's a berm
Oh, there's a berm?
with all the woodland area in it.
Oh.
It's a berm, and if you went in 15 feet, you wouldn't be able to see past that hump and all the woods.
Well, I might as well say, I'm not really very much in favor of the placement of the sign because it is so close to the roadway. And because it is in the right-of-way, it creates a problem for the town. It puts certain burdens on the town if there were an accident there and there was, loss, casualty loss, either of property or of person. And that could fall back on the town because it's in the town's right-of-way. And it would seem to me that you could find a better location for the sign so that people could see it before they actually arrived at the driveway, if there's some way to accomplish that. And not have it in the roadway at all, but have it back further.
The road curves.
Yeah, I know it
so
curves.
That's the only place we can have it that you'll be able to see it coming down the hill. There's just no other way, no other spot.
Well, I know further down the road is Source Nursery, and they have a sign there, and that's off the roadway, but I know they have a different elevation, different terrain and all that. But I don't know, I would suggest that maybe you try to get a little more creative in where you might be able to put it so that people can see it, that they don't have to go past your driveway before they actually see it, so they have to turn around and come back, but also that it's not within the roadway.
Well, we would want it 6 to 8 feet off of the road. And I did go through the traffic advisory committee, and they had no problem with it at all. And it's not going to hinder views coming in and out of the building.
Have you had any conversations with the town engineer, Peter McConerty, who's sitting in the back of the room?
I have not.
You have not.
I kind
Would
of
it-
got a little bit of a runaround with go to this committee, go to that committee, and it was very confusing. And I'm glad I'm here, kind of talking to you and showing you what we're thinking. And I hope you can see that there's just no other place to put the sign.
I was just going to suggest, and I'm sure the other members have something to say, but my suggestion would be that the town manager, the town engineer, and the applicant maybe have some sort of a sit-down and see if they can't come up with a plan that doesn't present us with a lot of risk in terms of where the sign is. But that's just my opinion.
Mr. Jones, we'll just go down.
On your map, you actually list the office parking is in the other driveway, that the only people that go here are the trucks and the employees that use this driveway. Have you changed that plan?
I wish I could see it.
Do you want a copy of this plan?
So the existing driveway for the office,
Because
that's
the
the
zoning,
existing driveway that was for the house, when it was a house. Changed it to an office. So that's the driveway that we're using for the customers. The larger parking area is for employees. And we do have our trucks there now, but we are moving them down to the lower space once that is finished.
Mr. Murphy?
The problem we're gonna run into here is that you're gonna put a sign on public property. There's gonna be some expense with that, because you need to hold the town harmless when you go on public property. I'm looking for it specifically, but town council would like to see an insurance policy that would hold the town harmless on that. Have you looked into that yet?
I have not.
Yeah, so I mean, I want you to know that once you go on public property, the town wants to be held harmless, meaning that we want liability insurance, that if a car veers off the road, there's a reason that we have, set road layouts, because the road layout is to be able to protect the public in case they go off the side of the road. If they hit something, we don't, in this case, they hit your sign, we want to be held harmless, as well as the fact that I think Mr. McConaughey suggested maybe that if it is not behind like a fencing, town fencing, that you put that fencing there at your expense. So I think you need to speak with Mr. McConaughey, the town manager, and come back with an actual plan of what they are going to require from you. Because if we made a motion tonight, I don't think the motion would be able to be complete, because first of all, it might cost you too much money to be able to buy this insurance. I don't know. I don't think we're here tonight to be able to discuss that, because you don't have all the facts, and it might not be to your advantage to have to do that, or to be able to be a benefit to pay for that insurance and then get the sign. I don't know what it will provide you, whether it will provide you that opportunity or not. It is definitely, it's not like an off-premise sign. It's definitely in front of your property. It just happens to be in the road layout. And typically, what folks do is they take care of the road layout as it is their own property. But you're going to actually fix something to that, so we need to be held harmless. Did I kind of summarize that, Mr. Suso?
Yes, Selectman, Mr. Chairman, if I just might make a comment. One of the reasons that the board does not see this frequently is that from a liability standpoint, as you noted, Selectman Murphy, the only signs that are supposed to be in the public right-of-way are traffic control, traffic regulation type signs. To allow a business sign to be placed within the road right-of-way, as you've noted, this board can certainly license that, but it does create a liability for the reasons that you mentioned, and as town council's recommended, there would have to be a significant liability insurance policy naming the town, and that would have to be continue in perpetuity, because any time, motorists, any time that they're within the road right-of-way, have reason not to expect to be hitting an obstacle that the selectmen have allowed to be there that is not a traffic regulation sign. And that is where the liability is created, regardless of the location. And that's the dilemma that the board faces. So it behooves any that would consider this for that only to be the absolute last resort. And the likelihood, I believe you're correct, Selectman Murphy, the likelihood is very great that the cost to provide the requisite insurance policy to the town that you'd have to protect taxpayers against the liability would probably exceed the cost for some other creative options that might be considered. So we would be happy to discuss that further with this individual and the applicant in general.
So can I maybe make a motion that we continue this hearing?
Well, I want to make sure we hear from every member of the board, and I have a few questions and comments myself. So before we go any further, Ms. Moffett?
I haven't seen any photo or anything of what the sign says or what it looks like. Or I do see how many square feet it's going to be. But
It was submitted with the application.
Do you have that picture there?
We're only ruling this evening on whether or not we want to approve the location, the design, and what the sign says. It's simply a business sign that it advertises their business as any sign for a
Well,
business
the
would.
purpose of my question was, there is so much frontage, and going from, is it 955? And then you have a 955A, and then you keep going down the highway, and you have a 981, and all of that is your property. My point in saying about the sign is there's a lot of frontage with your property. And that one space is as it comes around the curve, and I would see it if it did go behind the guardrail. But I'm just thinking, I didn't know what you were just going to say. This is where the greener image is, but there's a lot of property there. And to be tucked in that one little corner that is kind of controversial, I would think about another place on your property.
With I don't know if you can tell on the map, but
yes,
these lines that are really extremely close together, they're contours.
Yes.
And that shows a foot of difference in those contours. So if you're on the road and you count how many lines up, that's how many feet higher it is.
Okay.
And that's all plantings, and then you see the little dip is a berm.
Thank you.
I've got a few questions and comments myself. First of all, it's been mentioned that town council has suggested a liability policy, but I'm looking through all of this, and the only thing I see is from Mr. McConerty, who says, and I quote in his email, "I agree that the town would still want a hold harmless insurance coverage," but I don't see any such thing from town council.
It's Mr. Susek's report.
Is it indicating that, okay, so it's in the town manager's report, okay. All right, that would have been helpful to include in the packet, actually. And a few things. First of all, while I understand the concerns of the board in terms of the amount of frontage, most folks, when they're driving to a business, are going to be looking for where they turn in. And I can understand where the applicant is actually asking for a sign at their driveway. It doesn't make a lot of sense to put a sign 500 feet up the road. People are going to be looking for a driveway and they're not going to see it, and they're not going to know which driveway they're supposed to turn into. So I understand where the applicant's coming from in terms of this request. I'd also like to note we have from the Traffic Advisory Committee, they did recommend it. They said recommends the sign as long as it poses no visibility concerns for traffic traveling on or turning off or onto Sandwich Road. And the Design Review Committee has approved the sign as well. Placement requires approval of the board, so they're deferring to us in that regard. And then there's the email from the town engineer, and he does note he has concerns about the sign placement, and he suggests 4 conditions here. One is that the posts should be staked on the ground in order for the engineering division to inspect it, so that they could, in essence, see where it's going to, exactly where it's going to lie. He's suggesting there should be a minimum of 7 feet, preferably 8, from the closest edge of the sign to the edge of the roadway. The sign cannot block any required sight distances while pulling out of the driveway, which is exactly what the Traffic Advisory Committee did note. And also that the license for the sign should state that the town will not be held liable for any damages to the sign. And then there was a suggestion about extending the guardrail in an additional email, that the applicant could agree to pay for extending the guardrail so that the sign would be placed behind it. And again, that vehicles pulling out of the driveway should have adequate sight distance. I understand some of the concerns of the board, but I'd like to remind the board also that this is a rather convoluted process, and I've raised concerns before about how we permit signs in the community. This applicant not only had to go to the Design Review Committee for a sign, which really should be by right, they've now had to go through the Traffic Advisory Committee. They've had to come to us for an exemption, and we're now suggesting that they go and talk to somebody else one more time. So the characterization of this as a runaround, I think, is accurate. And I think, as Mr. Murphy says, the buck stops here, and if we're going to make a decision on this, we should make a decision. We can certainly put conditions on this, as requested from the town engineer. As far as holding harmless, I will note, and off the top of my head, I don't know what the conditions were placed on that sign, but this wouldn't be the first time that we've allowed a sign, a private sign, to be placed on the public roadway, in the public right-of-way. We did the exact same thing for the Falmouth Ice Arena up on Thomas Landers Road, because they had no frontage whatsoever on Thomas Landers Road. There was no place that they could put a sign for the ice arena without putting it on town property, and they did receive an exemption for that purpose. I don't know if there was any liability insurance requested with regards to that, but certainly the applicant, I'm sure the applicant has, I'm sure your business has liability insurance to begin with, and perhaps that this would simply be covered under that, and if it's an adequate distance from the roadway, I don't see it as being any different from what this board approved for the Falmouth Ice Arena.
Except for that was
I
just on
think
public property
the
without
line of
being
sight is
on the
different.
roadway.
That was on public property, exact same situation here.
No, except this is the layout of the road. That was not in the layout of the road.
I believe it was in the layout of the road, because there was no other option for them. But I may be mistaken, and maybe Mr. McConerty has some background on that one. It's been a few years since we did approve that particular variance. Mr. Murphy?
And I agree that the buck stops here, but I'd just like to continue it, so, number one, she can actually show Mr. McConaughey where the sign's gonna be placed. In other words, stake it. We have a meeting with him, the town manager's office can arrange that, and that she needs to understand whether or not the insurance will cover it. We might approve something that she's gonna say, it's too expensive, I can't do it. So give her a couple of weeks' time to look at this with Mr. McConaughey and Mr. Suso's office, and then just come back for the approval.
I guess the exact location troubles me. According to that picture, I would guess it's 3 feet from the road, the way the picture comes out. And the way our layout here is, there's a big, huge circle, which by scale would cover almost 30 different feet. And so the exact location concerns me. And we don't have that in a plan as to exactly how far it is going to be from the roadway. And so I think to continue and get that worked out before we vote on it would be helpful.
If I may, I'd like to emphasize that when you do come to some agreement, that you stake it, so that when we drive by, that we can actually see where it is, so we know what we're looking at. It's so much better to look at it. Like today, I could see, when you go past the driveway, you have that high, it's not called a berm, it's just that it's a big mound and a tree on it. And then you have also, it would be really helpful to have it staked when you get to that point.
Okay, so do you think you can try to get in, talk to the town engineer? We could bring you back in 2 weeks and have this decided? So the questions that are raised are the location, concerns about liability, see if your liability insurance would cover this. Those are the two significant issues that I've heard.
I think if you would consider another location. There's a lot of property there.
Okay, are we all in agreement?
Right.
No need to take a vote then, we'll have you back in 2 weeks. So the town manager and the town engineer will work with you to get those questions addressed.
So a motion to continue
right,
until
so
April 28th?
Motion to continue, do we have a
Second.
second? Motion and a second to continue this to April 28th. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition?
Okay.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda, we have committee interviews. We'll take a 5-minute recess. The board's been sitting here for almost 2 hours, a little over 2 hours now ourselves, so we need to stretch our legs a little bit here, folks. So we'll recess for 5 minutes. We'll be back at 8:55.